future doesn't have to be like that. If you step on in to the secret kindergarten, showing you that your young children hold the key to understanding the universe, understanding the self, and therefore they hold the key to human freedom. Your child is the gatekeeper. Only you can open the gate, and the secret kindergarten is going to show you how.
Hello and welcome back to the Secret Kindergarten. This is the grown-ups edition of the Secret Kindergarten. And I'm Gino. Today's show, we are exploring initiation, resurrection, ritual, and the change that happens at age 7, or we're trying to find that space that includes all of those topics. Can we find an appropriate ritual for families to initiate their 7-year-olds into the next stage of their lives? And is this something that is key to transforming the current state of child development, changing it into a practice that moves humanity towards freedom, which is the goal of, Revolution Radio, moving humanity towards freedom, and it's the goal of the Secret Kindergarten. It's the point of this show here, focusing on the first stage of human development, birth to 7 years old, in particular preschool, around about 3 to 5 years old. The ancient bear cult, the Stone Age bear cult. It turns out through our little bit of research here on the Secret Kindergarten that the 7-year-olds, or the age of 7, was held in a very high regard, and it appears to be that in the Stone Age, us Indo-European people used to hold children in very high regard. We used to revere them. Now, Rudolf Steiner talks about revering children as very important. Rosicrucian mystery tradition, and Max Heindel talks about that. And I discovered that was what was important in life and in terms of how you treated and related to children when I was a teacher. So reverence is the key here. And so because of that, because in the Stone Age, I don't know, was it really ooga booga? I think we were quite smart back then. I don't know that much about it, but I will say that examples and stories and cultures that revere young children, we are going to check that stuff out and find frameworks and activities and things that we can do for kids, with kids, that are beneficial to us, beneficial to the kids, and circling back to that, moving humanity towards freedom. That's what it's all about. And just a reminder that you can find the links and further information to anything I read or refer to during the show in the description of this episode once it's published on my website, thesecretkindergarten.com. You can check out previous shows and previous shows of all the other hosts on Revolution Radio in the revolution.radio archives. You can download my content for grown-ups, or especially something I'm very, very proud of, the content for children, young children, on all the podcast platforms, and those episodes for young children. If anything, if you do have a young child in your life as a parent or a caregiver or an uncle or what have you, please do check out one of those shows, especially one of just the more recent ones, to see the kind of things that you can do to engage with the kids in your life to benefit you and to benefit them in a way that is freedom promoting. True story. Okay, so much blah, blah, blah. We're going to look at Rudolf Steiner. Speaking of reverence, deep respect, we're going to look at the child's changing consciousness as the basis of pedagogical practice. And as we said before, the Stone Age bear cult were aware of the child's changing consciousness, and it was worthy of a great ritual that they performed that was decoded through footprints and other things found in a cave in France, and untouched from the Stone Age cave. All right, here we go. Rudolf Steiner. Let's look at how the child develops from birth to the change of teeth, which is 7 years old. This change of teeth is a unique event in life, inasmuch as it occurs only once in life. Now, if you can experience something similar to the feelings, Tagore is a Bengali, was a Bengali artist, I believe, and spiritualist. I think they called him a polymath. Okay. If you can experience something similar to the feelings Tagore expressed when he saw the amputated leg, you will realize that what is revealed in the change of teeth does not just happen in the jaws, but encompasses the entire human being. You will feel that something must be pervading the whole child until around the age of 7, and that some activity must reach a climax in the change of teeth. This activity is there in its original form until the 7th year, and then it is no longer present in its original state. When studying physics, for example, scientists have the courage to speak of latent heat as distinct from the various forms of liberated heat. According to this concept, there must be some form of heat that cannot be determined with a thermometer, but can be measured after it has been released. When characterizing these phenomena that occur in nature, scientists have shown courage in their interpretations. However, when the human being becomes the object of study, this courage is no longer there. Otherwise, they would not hesitate to state what has been working until the 7th year in the child, working toward liberation during the change of teeth, must have been connected with the physical organism before becoming freed and reappearing in a different guise as the child's inner soul properties. This is all very Steiner, isn't it? This same process can also be recognized in other areas of the child's bone formation. One would realize that these newly emerging powers must be the same, although transformed, as what had been active previously in the child's physical organism. Alright, so if anything, that just highlights the, how profound the change is. It's like this big, huge transformation, the change of teeth, from the first stage of human development to the second stage of child development. All right, now let's have a look at Rudolf Steiner's lecture, Children from the 10th to the 14th years. In this lecture that he gave, on the 3rd of January 1922 in Stuttgart. He passed away not long after that. So in this lecture, he builds up to the 10th to the 14th year, and he talks about children of 6 or 7. So here we go. Children of 6 or 7, when entering school, are one great sensory organ, as I have called them. At this stage, much has already been absorbed through imitation. Children have also been occupied with the inner processes of molding and sculpting the organs, and they bring the results to school. Now, everything that teachers do with the children until the turning point around 9 should have a formative effect, but in a way that stimulates them to participate freely and actively in this inner shaping. I indicated this with my strong appeal for an artistic approach during the introductions to reading, writing, and arithmetic. The artist element is particularly important at this age. All teaching during the early school years must begin with the child's will sphere, and only gradually should it lead over toward the intellect. Okay, that's it. I'm just stepping out of this reading. Yeah, so the will. So when you think of will and willpower, And maybe children, where do you think that comes from? That comes from being encouraging and affirming and loving and supporting and strengthening. And, we talk about in the Secret Kindergarten the importance of sticking up for oneself. And that's the key, just the key aspect of childhood that is actively removed and obfuscated, destroyed, and prevented in the institution, in the matrix, dude. Okay, so that's the key, and I think that is, a psyop. Okay, so we need children to have willpower. All right, back in. Those who recognize this will pay special attention to educating the child's will. They will know that children must learn to drive out the will forces from their organism, but in the right way. To do this, their will activities must be tinged with the element of feeling. It is not enough for teachers to do different things with the children. They must also develop sympathy and antipathy according to what they are doing. And the musical element, apart from music per se, offers the best means for achieving this. Thus, as soon as children are brought to us, we ought to immerse them in the element of music, not just through singing, but also by letting them make music with simple instruments. Thus, young students will not only nurture an aesthetic sense, but most of all, though indirectly, they will learn how to use and control will forces in a harmonious way. There we go. That's a little esoteric nugget of wisdom there. Children bring many inborn gifts to school. Inwardly, they are natural sculptors, and we can draw on these gifts as well as their other hidden talents. For instance, we can let children do all kinds of things on paper with paints, even though this might be inconvenient for teachers indeed. And in this way, we introduce them to the secrets of color. It is really fascinating to observe how children relate to color when left alone to cover a white surface with various colors. What they produce in a seemingly haphazard way is not at all meaningless, but in all the blotches and smears we can detect a certain color harmony resulting from an inborn relationship to the world of color. We must be careful, however, not to let children use the solid blocks of color that are sold in children's paint boxes, with which they are supposed to paint directly from the blocks onto the paper. This has a damaging effect, even in the case of painting as art. One should paint with liquid colors already dissolved in water or some other suitable liquid. And we can think here about water and the emotions and the subconscious and how they all symbolically kind of connected. That water symbolizes, can symbolize the emotions, it can symbolize the subconscious, and that's kind of where Steiner's coming from with this. It is important, especially for children, to develop an intimate relationship with color. If we use thick paints from a palette, we do not have the same intimate relationship to color as we do when we use liquid colors from bottles. In a painting lesson, you might say to a child, "What you have painted is really beautiful. You put red in the middle and all the other colors around it go well with the red. Everything you painted fits well with the red in the middle. Now try to do it the other way around, where you have red, paint blue, and then paint around it all the other colors so they also go well with the blue in the middle." Not only will this child be tremendously stimulated by such an exercise, but by working out a transposition of colors, possibly with help from the teacher, the child will gain a great deal toward establishing an inner relationship to the world in general. However inconvenient it may be for the teachers, they should always encourage young students to form all sorts of shapes out of any suitable material that they can lay their hands on. Of course, we should avoid letting them get unduly dirty and messy, since this can be a real nuisance. But children gain far more from these creative activities than they would by simply remaining clean and tidy. In other words, it is truly valuable for children, especially during the early years, to experience the artistic element. Anything required of children must be induced first, in a way that is appropriate to their nature. If artistic activities are introduced as described, learning other subjects becomes easier. Okay, so just quickly stepping out to say that, just remember that, okay? If you've got children, young children in your life, like a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, art, very important, and a real pain. So this is where, adults need to dig deep, right? Like you're going to the gym, that extra set of repetitions, it's like that, okay? Dig deep, let the child make a mess with the paint and paintbrush and just, suck it up, let it happen, make it happen. That is the best thing you can do, full stop, in that space, in that moment in time. All right, diving back in. Foreign languages, for example, will be learned with far greater ease if students have done artistic work beforehand. I already said that children should learn foreign languages at a very early age, if possible as soon as they enter school. Nowadays, we often encounter somewhat fanatical attitudes. Something that in itself is quite right and justifiable tends to become exaggerated to the point of fanatical extremism. And teaching foreign languages is no exception. Children learn their native tongue naturally without any grammatical consciousness. And this is how it should be. And when they enter school, they should learn foreign languages in a similar way without grammatical awareness. But now the process of learning a language is naturally more and more conscious. All right, so that was just a little reading just to, I think it nicely highlights the change in consciousness of the child at 7. That, something like art, which is kind of, in terms of education, underappreciated. It's kind of like the dropout subject, right? And that's the kind of thing that's really important in the early years. And then after 7 years old, you hit a change, okay? Things become more conscious, and that this art stuff, this more arty music art, the more whimsical stuff is what's really important and is foundational for the learning that adults really want their kids, or think their kids really need. So in the early years is what, play, music, art, that sort of thing is what's really, really important. It's what's key for holistic intelligence and for the right mind, for learning and for other, for everything with kids and learning. So now we're going to go to a book called The Secret Science of Masonic Initiation. And this is by Robert Lomas. And there's just a chapter in there called What is Initiation? And because we're exploring initiation, because what we're seeing is that at 7, the child is being initiated into consciousness. And there were rites and rituals, as we have said, that were held in very high regard and very serious for 7-year-olds. And there are those in the world, in cultures that have been kept intact with their, rituals and stuff. And the big one was in the Stone Age with the she-bear cult, possible blood eating ritual for the 7-year-olds that lasted about a month. What lasted like 40 days. A big trial for a 7-year-old. Sounds quite traumatic, doesn't it? But anyway, what is initiation? According to Robert Lomas from The Secret Science of Masonic Initiation. Let's have a look. What do I mean when I talk of initiation? To become an initiate, you need to know what is involved in the process and exactly what you are aspiring to become. Let me explain by example. Imagine you are a fish living in the dark depths of the sea. Your grasp of that way of life will be limited to what you can see and touch in your closed subaquatic world. You will know nothing of the land world, of the air world, of the sun and stars, of humans and their complex interests and civilization. These will be things beyond the scope of your imagining. In Masonic terms, you would be hoodwinked and in a state of darkness. If you were a fish of the caliber of Disney's Nemo and able to talk, you would probably be fiercely derisive about the existence of such a strange, non-aqueous world, if it were suggested to you. But if your level of perception could be changed, if you could be raised up to awareness and understanding of these things in the upper world, you would become a fishy initiate. You would know of ways of living, of secrets and mysteries of being, beyond those of your scaly compatriots. Your consciousness would be raised to a level that enables it to range far wider than theirs. Whilst you are uninitiated, you live in a state of constant darkness. You are only aware of your close surroundings. You accept as real only those things that you can see or touch, the things of the flesh. Everything of the spirit is uncertain, speculative, or fanciful. Your eyes are hoodwinked, and you fail to see the inner aspect of things. You do not behold the world of the spirit. Everything beyond the limitation of your physical senses is hidden. You may have notions, beliefs, and strong convictions and direct your life accordingly, but you lack direct contact with and self-knowledge of the Spirit. When you become an initiate, you learn certitude, contact, and knowledge. There are degrees of advancement, even among initiates, but whatever his or her degree, every initiate has found and lives within her or his spiritual center. Non-initiates live from their gross senses. They live at their circumference, using reason, cognition, and workaday intelligence. Initiates have a revolutionary inward experience that transforms their consciousness. It is one thing to be top of one's class, but quite another to be moved to a higher class altogether. As an initiate, you will move up a class in life school. Masonically, the initiate is raised to a new order of consciousness. We're just going to push pause on this reading of what is initiation, because the chat is a wellspring of information, as ever. Let's scroll up here. Mitzi is asking about whether I'm Catholic or if I'm pagan. Well, I'm paraphrasing here. I was raised Catholic. And let's see. Yeah, so Mitzi says, wow, Gino, just like Catholics, but they made us do that our whole lives. And if still go to them for our quote-unquote spiritual education. And Tatanka Dave says, religion separates us, spirituality brings us back together. And that's exactly right. And I think where I get the conflict in my mind, because I was raised Catholic, which is a type of Christian, is that, finding this pagan information, well, obviously, identifying as a pagan or being a pagan is another religion, but it doesn't mean that the stuff contained in the pagan world or what pagans used to do. I just don't think pagans, when they were pagans all the way back then, were a religion. They were just people connected with the earth and connected with who they are as human beings. And Mitzi does mention something like that here. Mitzi says she used to give her money to the Save the Pagan Babies Fund, little jar on the nun's desk, and I'm assuming that's in Catholic school when she was growing up. Oh, bless Mitzi. And Mitzi stopped giving that money once she figured out what they were really doing for those children. And Mitzi intuited quickly that it wasn't good, the takeover of peaceful, life-loving people. And Mitzi's an earth person, and she guesses that people call that pagan, and I agree. I think I'm an earth person. And I struggled to identify as pagan because I don't want to be another religion. And also, on the Secret Kindergarten, a lot of the stuff we cover is generally either pagan or esoteric Christian, and the truth can be found everywhere once you dive deep. And I think there's a big crossover with esoteric Christianity and paganism. I think because I was raised Catholic, I can digest the esoteric Christian stuff better or easier because I was raised around all those types of symbols, right? Jesus and all that sort of thing. But I will say it was disappointing being raised Catholic is that I had no idea what confirmation and communion was. They used to explain it. It made no sense. And it was like, what are they talking about? But I guess we're older now and we can actually read and understand things better. And also in a way I'm grateful for it because it probably led me to the truth, because the word Catholic means basically the truth, or like the quest for truth. And I think all the not so truthful things we were told did something to us, planted a seed. And Tatanka Dave says, my definition of pagan is a person who resists thinking the dominant culture is quote-unquote civilized. And that is really a really good quote, Tatanka Dave, because that quote includes everybody's view there, whether they are religious or not. Yeah. So that's what, I guess Catholics would think, that that a pagan is someone who rejects their way, right? And Mitzi 77 says, yes, I think pagan is maybe a label they use to set us aside. Now they've woven in Satanism with paganism. Yes, and that's another thing here, because I think with the esoteric Christian mystery traditions, there's more of a focus on what's right and what's wrong and morality. And when you get to paganism as a religion, it gets a little bit like, just do whatever you want a little bit. The lines are a little bit blurred, and there are obviously voices in the pagan religion that, try to clarify those things. But if you were to go straight to paganism, you could get caught up in a lot of stuff that isn't right. And then I guess with the exoteric Christian religions, you could be doing a lot of things that are wrong, believing that they're right, because you know that there is a right and there is a wrong, but you're being told things that are right that are actually wrong. Oh, it's an absolute minefield. All right, so appreciate that in the chat. Yeah, absolutely. So what are we going to... Okay, we're going to move on. Okay, so we had a look at initiation from the Masonic. Well, we looked at that for 2 minutes, but that's okay, because we kind of know what initiation is, but we're just going to wrap that up quickly. So in Freemasonry, an initiate is someone who is raised to a new order of consciousness, and the 7-year-old is being raised to consciousness itself. So I believe that that's why it was considered, and it is so important, because it's like the real first initiation. So it's a big deal. It's a big, big deal. First experiences, first things for children, for human beings, are usually celebrated or acknowledged as a big deal. Okay, so that's a big deal. That's the importance that that's what we're gathering here so far. And now we're going to move to All Rites Reversed by Antero Alli from 1987. Just another book that I found. I think Robert Anton Wilson did the foreword for this. But this is a book called All Rites Reversed, Ritual Technology for Self-Initiation. I found this book, dare I say, frightening in a good way. But here we go. We're going to look at resurrection ceremonies, the living funeral. And basically this guy has created a modern book of rites and rituals and things to do for initiating yourself into a higher order of consciousness through his study all the way back to the bear cult, which seems to keep popping up on the secret kindergarten now. and modernizing. So he's tried to do bringing back ritual and initiation for the modern world. And it was published in 1980, what did I say? 1987. Okay, so let's get going. Resurrection ceremonies, okay? So the reason we're looking at resurrection ceremonies, because in the bear cult, the 7-year-old turning 7 was also the resurrection of the ancestor inside the child. So the coming online and the becoming conscious for the 7-year-old, the change of the teeth, was bringing in the teeth of the ancestor. So it was a resurrection ceremony. It was a resurrection. Yeah, it was the resurrection of the ancestor. Right. So I'm just pouring coffee. I find this, super, really fascinating. And the goal here is we're going to find, maybe not today, but we're going to find some rituals for families to do for when the kids turn 7 years old. Okay? We've got to find something hopefully appropriate. Hopefully something that won't land us in jail. Okay, let's have a look. A living funeral is any ritual enactment or ceremony formalizing emotional and or psychological death for the purpose of self-renewal. It can be as simple as a 10-minute solo polarization to a 4-hour group effort with elaborate preparatory phases. The primary intent behind a living funeral is creating the space and permission to die and be reborn. How this is actualized depends on the individuals present, their ritual knowledge and willingness to be responsible for generating and sustaining the power field most conducive to its unfolding. The following ritual tasks are excerpted from previously executed living funerals for those wishing to form a basis for constructing new versions. Okay, it's a little bit heady, and I think there's a bit of a precursor to this, but we're going to just do this for the idea, just for the sake of time, and we're trying to get to, the meat and potatoes, right? So, number 1, the group sits in a large circle with at least 3 feet of space between individuals. Everybody takes turns talking about personal experiences with any form of death. Then, everyone is asked to rename death with a term communicating the essence of their personal experience. Okay, number 2, hit the dirt. A children's game. One person is chosen as the executioner, and everyone else are intentional victims. The executioner stands in the center of a large circle made up of the others. Loud rock and roll or marching music, Joy Division has worked well, starts the circle of intentional victims moving. When one of them is ready to die, he or she catches the attention of the executioner and communicates his or her fantasy, how he or she wishes to die and or be killed. The executioner in turn recreates the setting and, if needed, the characters to fulfill this destiny. During the fantasy enactment, the others stop and watch. They are also available to the executioner if he or she requires more players to complete the scene. When done, the circle continues until another victim steps forth. All take their turn, then all fulfill the executioner's fantasy. Now, my first thought is this could be the thing, but we're not going to say that yet, because we've just recently talked about death play for children. Children are closer to death than we are. If all being well and good, right? Going backwards, okay? And death play, we've talked about how death play should be allowed and affirmed, not necessarily encouraged in terms of okay, now you're going to play about death. But maybe it's the thing for the 7-year-old ritual. But I'll tell you, like I've said before, you've never seen kids so enthralled, excited, and playful and happy when Gino, the child murderer, came out to play. Yeah, literally I'm going to kill you now. And oh my God, it's, it's obviously inappropriate in the modern day, but I got in lots of trouble for that. But the kids I've never seen happier kids in my entire life. And by the way, it was child-led. So the kids were asking for it. I don't know why. But here's the point that, you let the child lead you. The child led me to these things, to these ideas, okay? All the stuff I did with the kids was stuff that they wanted to do. It was child-led learning, which is a strategy for being an effective teacher that teachers do learn. It's just that they don't implement. So if teachers actually implemented what was on paper, because what's on paper is what gets the parents a sense of security with the institutions, a sense of, this is actually important for the kids. Even if the parent had the resources and the time to homeschool or to spend more time with their child, they see, actually, my child's better off over here. Because on paper, it's ticking all the boxes, it's saying all the things that speak to the heart and soul and the mind of the adult. But the reality of the system, it's all set up to not be able to achieve that. Okay, how are we for time? Oh, here we go. We'll do this one. What I don't want to be when I grow up. Another children's game. Each participant takes turns presenting a characterization to the rest of the group in a spotlight situation. This character is the direct expression of the title of this task. Okay, so they're going to express through their actions and whatever, the thing that they don't want to be when they grow up. Care should be taken to be as honest as possible and to relate by eye contact with the others during your time under the spotlight. So perhaps, what I'm trying to say here is perhaps at 7 years old, for the 7-year-old birthday party, there are some little games that we can play with an understanding of them as being rituals to initiate the child into coming online, becoming conscious. So that's what we're trying to find here. Okay, so I think we're going to move on from that. So that was about, those were some suggestions of resurrection ceremonies, and that's obviously for grown-ups. And that's from the book All Rites Reversed, Ritual Technology for Self-Initiation by Antero, Alli. And now we're going to move to Natural Rites and Traditions Based on the Seasons from the book The Seasons, Natural Rites and Traditions, edited by Dean Miller. We have just enough time to have a little look at that. Let's go there. Initiation. All right. And I'm just going to initiate that with a sip of coffee. One moment. Who would have thought that, getting the wrong coffee bean tastes different? We're putting it in the espresso maker. Wasn't very nice. Put it in the plunger. Bloomin' delicious. So, initiation. In every initiation ceremony, there is some idea of a new birth as part of the process of assuming full status in the group. Quote, except a man be born again, unquote, is the Christian phrasing for a process that in many ceremonies involves acting out a return to a symbolic womb. Part of the ritual of the Kunapipi, an Australian Aboriginal group, involves the initiates being brought into the sacred ground to enter the mother. They go into her uterus, the ring place, as happened in the beginning. In acting out the ritual, they are covered over with bark and hung from a pole. They are, as Mircea Eliade shows, in the womb, and they will emerge reborn. Their spirit comes out new. What do you reckon? You reckon you could bury a 7-year-old on his birthday? And dig him up again? Oh dear. The theme of rebirth is paralleled by the equally important recurring theme of death. Both are closely linked structurally in the whole process of initiation. The new life cannot start until the old has been disposed of. Ritual death to the old life. The former, sinful, corrupt condition is expressed in the elaborate mythology surrounding most puberty rites. So this is a puberty rite. which is beyond the scope of the secret kindergarten. We're looking for 7-year-olds, 7-year-old rites. In the Congo on the Loango coast, boys between 10 and 12 have a ritual death in the village when they are given a potion to make them unconscious as a prelude. Now, dead, they are taken into the jungle, circumcised, buried in the fetish house, and painted white, a sign that they are ghosts of their former existence. Rebirth may be expressed by the infantile behavior of the initiates when they return. They may appear helpless, like babies. They stay in the stay in the bush serves the important function of signifying the death of the previous relationship between a son and his mother. Initiation ceremonies serve several functions in relation to the social structure, and they also emphasize the deeper belief system. The newly initiated have a special status because they have learned the mysteries, survived the ordeals, having escaped the belly of whale or serpent, or whatever other experience may be central to the creation myth of the group. Initiation into secret societies, shamanic or other groups of priests, witches or warriors follows a similar pattern but with a more elaborate and distinctive indoctrination of the individual. In these ceremonies, the demonstration of some magical divine or shamanic power by the initiate is looked for as a sign that he has attained the appropriate characteristics of a god, animal, or spirit. A transcendent existence and the powers that go with it replace the mere human condition. In most hero legends, the young warrior characteristically undergoes an experience of a sacred, mystical kind that gives him superhuman powers or magical elements that he can use in his ordeal. The tasks that are set to those who hope to win the hand of the beautiful princess in the classical fairy tales depend on more than normal attributes in the performer. The hero becomes seized with power. He becomes heated, baptized with fire. Mircea Eliade describes how in Germanic secret societies the young man became a berserker in a frenzy of fury. He became heated to an extreme degree, flooded by a mysterious, non-human, and irresistible force. The initiation of the Kwakiutl Indian warrior in British Columbia involves a similar frenzy of possession and heating, and the same thing is recorded in the Irish hero legends of Cuchulainn, excuse my pronunciation, or the Greek and Indo-European initiations of cultural hero figures. So that's for the 13, 14-year-olds going into the third stage of child development. So yeah, the hero becomes seized with power. He becomes heated, baptized with fire. So, are we lost? Are we too far beyond being able to do these? Because when I've looked at this ritual stuff, it always looks like trauma, right? Traumatic and kind of, causing harm to the person. What are we going to discover for 7-year-olds? And if we find something super appropriate, is it even appropriate? Do you know what I mean? Is it just something so watered down that it doesn't even have the effect it does? Is the thing that's really going to work? Is it going to be something that you're really just harming a 7-year-old? And are you going to, can we conceive that is actually the right thing to do? And is it the right thing to do? That's what we're trying to figure out here. I'm not trying to find a way to abuse kids, right? I'm just trying to find a way to bring back freedom, to bring back empowered children. And does that mean just toughening up? Does that mean kids need to toughen up? But it does highlight the importance of allowing kids to stick up for themselves in terms of self-defense. If they're getting bullied, they should be allowed to use their hands to defend themselves, and they should be affirmed. And that's one thing I definitely know. And that is aligned with this sort of theme of toughening up the kids. Kids know how to be tough. We have to allow them. So we've got that in the bag. And let's see what we find next week in terms of ritual initiation. Let's figure out how to get our kids online to create freedom for the world. Thank you so much for listening. I love you guys, and we'll see you at the next one.